This is Charles Douglas reporting from Eureka. Today I spent a rainy afternoon here in Eureka with Rebecca Kimbel. The story we're about to reveal may be frightening or upsetting to some viewers. Join us as we reveal this breaking news hitting national television next week. This is an exclusive scoop brought to you by the Eureka Tribune. Thank you for joining us today in the special report. I'm sitting here in Eureka with Rebecca Kimbel. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. You let the folks at home and the internet know, who are you?
I am one child born to my father's 6 wives. There were 39 children for all his 6 wives. And I am a product of an FLDS polygamist family.
And where did you come from?
I was born and raised in Utah. I was pretty much raised isolated, like most polygamous children are. And we were homeschooled. We were taught basically our religion over and over. I didn't know who the President of the United States was, but I knew who God's mouthpiece on earth was.
And are you related to the FDLS or Fundamentalist Latter-day Saints polygamous group at the Yearning for Zion Ranch in Texas?
Yes, I am. They're my relatives. Warren Jeffs, the leader who is now in prison, his father performed my marriage when I was married as a child bride. I was married very young. My husband literally paid cash for me. I had 9 pregnancies and 6 living births, all of one taking place before I was 23 years old, which is not uncommon among polygamous girls.
And how well do you know Warren Jeffs?
I know that group very, very well because I have family there. I have family, especially women, cousins and whatnot, in almost every FLDS compound there is, because the women go into different compounds according to what's convenient for the men.
And these compounds are spread throughout North America?
There are several in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and even Nicaragua. They do spread out because the key to control is isolation. Many people have asked me, what do these polygamists have in common besides polygamy? Well, the glue that holds the polygamous cult together is not polygamy, it's fear. It's called a blood covenant. These groups, these followers, these religious people are held into this slavery, not by faith, but by fear. Because the one thing they all have in common is the blood covenant. There are many people that have been killed for disobedience because of the blood covenant. Even though it's illegal according to the religion, it is not only not immoral, it's a right to save their soul.
And is polygamy the only thing these groups have in common?
Well, with the blood covenant in common, and they have in common the fact that most of them know each other, and their daughters will be sent to different compounds to marry into those compounds so that the bloodlines can be spread out a bit. Even though, if you've been following the news, there's a lot of problems because it wasn't spread out a bit far enough.
So even though these all act as separate branches or separate churches, they really do form their own sort of network.
They definitely have their own network. Whenever they set up a compound, the name of the bank account of that compound is held in a religious name. For example, Yearning for Zion, the Blood of the Lamb, etc. Therefore, if there are problems with the law and it goes forward, it looks like some peculiar little isolated solo religious group had these problems. But they are not solo. They are all intermingled. I have family in almost every polygamous cult I know of. And my family is so big, I don't even know how many nieces and nephews I have.
And what is the latest breaking news on this story about this ranch and about the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints?
The latest breaking news is not directly from Yearning for Zion Ranch. On May 14th, a fugitive who has been hunted for over 20 years has been captured. Her name is Tarza LeBaron. She is one of the people that was tried, and she escaped, and the only one, or brought forward for trial, for the murders in Texas. There's a book on the murders called The 4 O'Clock Murders. She is the daughter of Erbil LeBaron. Also, on the same day, May 14th, Rena Shanath came forward and was interviewed on Arizona Family, Mike Watkis. She came forward and told the world, again, how she murdered my uncle, how she pulled the trigger, and why she had to do it or she would be killed. There are many things about the string of murders that can be followed by just Googling up Erbil LeBaron. He had over 30 people, or approximately 30 people, executed or killed in blood atonement. His own brother, his own daughter, and the squad, the murder squad that carried most of them out, were his own young wives and children that he raised to be soldiers of blood in the name of God and promised them eternal rewards. These children committed murders for their father or their husband even after he died. He did go to prison and he died in prison, but the murders continued. Rena Shanath was his 14th wife. And she went forward to murder as requested. She killed Dr. Rulon Allred, who is my uncle. Like I say, he was one of many.
It almost sounds like the sort of thing you hear about in the old world and some of these fundamentalist religions there, the bride burnings, even the way the Taliban treats their women. Do you see a similarity there?
I honestly believe, from having lived and grown up in this religion, that it's closer to the Taliban than any religion I've ever read about. For example, when I was a child, when my father was in prison for polygamy, his youngest wife, Rachel, left him and took her children, and she thought she escaped. She was killed in an airplane crash. Daddy gathered the family together later when he got home and told us about blood covenants. And he said, God, the finger of God, struck down that airplane and killed her for breaking her covenants and trying to leave me. And he did it so that I wouldn't have to. So I was raised believing in blood covenants. If you broke your covenants, the only way you could be saved was to have your blood shed so that you could be pure before God. The blood of Jesus Christ didn't save us. It had to be our own. Our own. And there are many people that have been killed through blood covenants, not just through Erbil LeBaron. Growing up, I remember so often the Salt Lake City Tribune and Deseret News, the headlines peppered with another religious murder in the name of God. It's common. Yet we, as Americans, prefer to look across the ocean and make remarks about people who think they have a right to kill their wife so they'll have her in eternity, and not realize that we should look in our own backyard.
So these blood covenants are almost like a sentence of death hanging over the heads of every woman involved in this FTLS.
If you're disobedient. If you're disobedient, your husband or father or brother or whoever is in charge doesn't have to kill you, but he has the right and the choice. And if someone over him, such as Erbil LeBaron, orders your death, if they can find you, you're dead.